So one day there's nothing, but then there was Isaiah. This guy named Isaiah decided to create the world as we know it, and this world is called Praetoria, and it has a lot of blocks in it, like, a lot. But good news, you can make stuff out of these blocks, like a boat. So Isaiah makes a boat, and he sails down to this little area right here, and he establishes a city called Arlington. It's a pretty bad city right now, but maybe it'll get better. Isaiah then declares himself king, so that's cool. Isaiah gets pretty bored making all this stuff, so he realizes he can enslave his younger brother Matthew to do all the stuff for him. But Matthew didn't like that, so he moved to the coast and created a town called Coral Harbor. Good job, Matthew. So then Isaiah shows his friend Grayson his world, but that didn't go well. Maybe it was a bad idea to show more people his realm. So then he invites Henry and Jerry. The world is only a week old, but hey, it's growing fast. Maybe we call this the Golden Age. Because a lot of stuff happened next. Henry is named Praetor, heir to the throne. Meanwhile, Jerry doesn't seem to do anything. But hey, maybe that'll change in the future. Anyways, Henry decides to go off and create a settlement that he calls Lakeside, because it's beside a lake. Meanwhile, Jerry decides to build a caboose. Henry and Isaiah are working in Arlington when Isaiah decides to build a big ol' stadium. This will be the best stadium of all time, he said, until it's not. Then Isaiah creates god weapons for Henry and Jerry. They're super powerful, except Jerry gets a shield instead of a weapon. So then Isaiah has a stroke of genius and decides to build a giant wall in order to keep flying people from getting inside. The kid named Grayson from before gets on for real this time, and he spawns in a weird-looking panda. Henry decides to name him Baba and says, hey, we can make him into our mascot. I'm sure nothing will happen to him. Oh, wait. Okay, so Isaiah figures out how to use command blocks, and this is a good thing, except it's not, because Isaiah creates a button that can kill anything living ever, and then proceeded to tell everybody how secret it is. Then one day outside of Coral Harbor, Henry and Jerry are just messing around when Jerry's horse gets struck by lightning. So Jerry thought that the appropriate response would be to kill everything that anyone had ever loved ever, and so Jerry presses the Kill All Entities button and wipes out all life in Praetoria. Yeah, so everything died. Uh-oh, they said. Then Henry and Jerry replaced every single animal in Arlington and kept it a secret from Isaiah for multiple weeks until they eventually told him. This made Isaiah really sad, so to cope with his depression, he went down and created mini-games. Then Isaiah installs a courtroom in the Capitol in case anybody breaks any laws. Speaking of laws, there are a lot of them now, and Isaiah uses a smart technique called making them apply to everybody except for himself. But then Grayson comes back, and he builds a nice castle, so he and Isaiah become friends. But then Henry and Jerry blow up his castle. And then Isaiah's like, what the heck? So then Henry says that he's going to leave the server forever. But that was a fucking lie. Then Henry and Isaiah decide to build a nuclear test site and spawn in a chunk of TNT, because Henry and Isaiah are geniuses, except for when they're not. After that, Isaiah builds a squadron, which is the most advanced tower at that time. Then one day, Henry's playing on the realm, when his friends Aiden and Parker see him playing, and they ask to join the realm too. With these two new players, the expansion era begins. Parker starts off chill, building a little fountain. Meanwhile, Aiden erects a massive sky fortress called Helios City. Wow. There are new settlements now, but they're mostly still in Arlington. Neat. Then Parker and Aiden decide to fight the Ender Dragon, except they were in creative mode, so it was kind of lame. Next, Isaiah decides to build a prison called Alcatraz, and Jerry must have liked that place a lot, because he ended up spending a lot of time there. Speaking of which, Jerry decides to go blow up his own mining company, and then attempts to frame someone else, but then when he gets figured out, he decides that he's sick of jail, and instead he gets put on house arrest. Then one day, Jerry is minding his own business when he decides to expand his railroad into Coral Harbor. But that insulted Isaiah on a personal level, so he takes Jerry to court over the matter, where the jury votes for a tie. So Isaiah and Jerry worked out their differences and came to a solution where they were both happy. Just kidding, they fought to the death. And Isaiah won! So the railroad was removed from Coral Harbor. Good job. By the way, Arlington is starting to look a bit like a dictatorship. Uh-oh. But then Isaiah leaves for vacation, which gives Henry sole command over the server. So Henry and Jerry start planning a coup, but then they ditch that plan in favor of creating their own countries. Jerry wants to create Arstotzka, but remembers Isaiah is still on vacation and can't do all the work for him yet. But then Henry creates Coastland up north, which starts out as a nice beach city. He then builds a massive bridge in order to link Arlington and Coastland. Then Isaiah gets back from vacation, so Jerry finally decides to build Arstotzka, except it was actually built by Isaiah. Back at Coastland, Henry adopts a pig named Pulu. He's cool. I'm sure he'll live forever. Anyways, but in Arlington, a mysteriously large amount of chickens show up out of nowhere, causing immense lag. They attempted to gas the chickens, but to no avail. This prompts them to press the Kill All Entity switch for a second time, killing every animal around Arlington. So Baba dies again. But it's okay, we can make a new one. Or two. After this second mass extinction, do you want to know what happens next? Nothing, for a long time, and thus began the Dark Age. This was because the realm was mostly inactive during this time period. So Isaiah says, I am tired of all this nothingness. Let's do something. So then he and Henry get back on the realm and try to restore it. Maybe that's why they call it the Age of Restoration. Then Ada, Henry, and Isaiah founded Pumpkin Pigledge. But let's not talk about what happened there. Then, on the outskirts of Arlington, Jerry's caboose gets blown up by a creeper. Oh no! Anyways, Isaiah decides he wants to build a Praetorian International Council, despite there only being 3 countries. So he builds a PIC building. I hope nothing happens to it. Isaiah's younger brother Sam and his best friend Carter decide to get on the server, and they have big plans. Because they immediately established their own microstate country called Paradise, and then proceeded to threaten to bomb Arlington City, which the people in Arlington did not like very much. So they hold Carter on trial at the PIC building for war crimes and treason. But in the middle of the court case, he accesses an ender chest, pulling out a ton of creeper eggs, spawning in hundreds of creepers, which then explode, killing majority of the people in the building, and then attempts to escape through the streets, but is hunted down, killed, and banned by Henry and Isaiah, who then blow Paradise to smithereens as an act of revenge. So now Paradise is gone. Maybe. The PIC building had to be restored, and this terror attack was known as 1026. Then Coastland and Arlington would fight each other in what was known as the Gay War, where Henry and Isaiah both took turns bombing each other's cities with hundreds and hundreds of gay flags, but eventually they settled on a truce. Then Henry goes back near Coastland to create the Coastland Skyship, because skyships are cool, I guess. So then Isaiah wants to expand Arlington City. Then Henry says that they haven't even finished the first part of the city yet. Then Isaiah said, screw you, and then they expanded it anyways. Then out of nowhere, a metric ass load of pillagers appear on the front part of Arlington. So Henry and Isaiah had to fight them all off and save Arlington City. This was known as the Battle of Soon Hill. And then the hyperlink is built, which is a super efficient mode of transportation using command blocks. Hey, said Carter one day, can I get back on the server? I promise I won't blow anything up. Seems legit, said Isaiah. So they let him back on the server, where he established New Paradise. Then Isaiah decides that he wants to own even more land. So he creates a new province called Asgar that belongs to Arlington. Then a player named Colin decides to join Praetoria, who already has a lot of friends in the server. So he decides to build a city called Prism, which is part of his own country called Cornet. And the creation of Asgar and Cornet was the beginning of the Renaissance. And things get a bit hectic. Original Arlington is complete, the Praetorian timeline is created, the sacred gamer temple is built, the religious texts are written, Matthew is fired as a praetor, Praetoria is officially mapped out, bees appear on the realm, Colin is hired as the new praetor. Meanwhile, Prism is a pretty cool city, but Aiden wants to make it cooler by building a giant water reservoir. So then they build a giant water reservoir. Then Isaiah erects the God of War statue. Then one day, Henry and Isaiah are debating the meaning of life when they come up with the theory of Minecraft physics and dimensional planes. At one point, Isaiah is just chilling in Arlington when he decides to teleport every single living entity to his location, causing every mob, pet, and animal to be teleported to Arlington Times Square, in which many started attacking each other, causing a massive battle royale to ensue, in which many pets and animals were killed in the battle. Baba died again, but at least Pulu survived. For now. Meanwhile, the country of Cornet is starting to expand, and they're becoming a world superpower. Then one day, on an island off the coast of Cornet, Aiden is staring at a bee when he says,
"Hey, I can make a religion out of this."
So he creates Bee Tower, which is the most massive and intricate building ever created on the server. Aiden named the bee Bebo, but Aiden made the grave mistake of getting too attached to him, because Bebo's existence alone was enough to drive Colin to the brink of madness. So Colin went on a long voyage to hunt down and assassinate Bebo, which eventually led to a deadly struggle in which Bebo stung Colin in self-defense, causing Bebo to pass away in his sleep a few seconds later.
So Colin was charged with assisted suicide, but Aiden didn't think that was enough, so he decided to go and blow up the Prism Dam. And after the bee massacre began the construction period. Do you remember that time where Arlington built a big stadium? Well, they decided to build a bigger one, and it became a world wonder, along with Prism's big-ass stadium, the big-ass tower, the big-ass statue, the big-ass bridge, the big-ass skyship, and the big-ass tub of water.
Oh, and also the big-ass wall. But look, a new country is formed. It's called Alkadoosh, and it was started by Lawrence.
Then, on the south coast of Arlington, Henry gets a brilliant idea, and that brilliant idea is to spawn in thousands upon thousands of pigs. However, the pigs were angry that they were alive, so they started lagging the server to death. "They're lagging the server to death," said Parker, and so Isaiah was forced to activate the /kill all pigs command, which single-handedly killed every single pig in Praetoria, and unfortunately, that also included Pulu.
Meanwhile, in Arlington, there hasn't been a terror attack since the last terror attack,
Because a player named Caitlin thought it would be funny to place singular TNT blocks all over Arlington City, but she was soon arrested.
Arlington was suffering from a few too many terror attacks, so Isaiah thought the best thing to do would be to create an alternate survival server. This ignited the SMP era. But the server was immediately overrun with Carter and his friends, who kicked everyone out of spawn. The group fled to a secret base called the Ark, where they built up and plotted their revenge, in which Parker, Henry, and Isaiah snuck into Carter and his friends' base while they were online,
and proceeded to steal and pillage all of their stuff, leaving the 12-year-olds with absolutely nothing, establishing their dominance back on the server. And then the main group came together to fight and kill the Ender Dragon, causing the conclusion of the SMP server. And then, after a series of smaller SMPs, the group decided to return to the main Praetoria server. But this brought about the finalization age. Back in the PIC building, the group was holding Caitlin on trial for her previous war crimes. But can you guess what unexpected event happened next? Correct. The PIC building was blown up. It turns out Carter and his Goonies had put TNT blocks underneath the PIC building during the court case, and it had ignited them. Look, there are two new countries. There's Dagaway, which was started by Matthew, and there's Gravith, but we don't talk about Gravith. Asgard is then sold to Aiden and Parker, who turn it into an independent country called Sartok. So after repairing the PIC building, Isaiah gets a brilliant idea to add nuclear bombs onto the server. So then he adds nuclear bombs onto the server. They're strong enough to obliterate an entire city. What could possibly go wrong? One night, a player by the name of Bill joined Praetoria, and on his first day on the server, committed 2 terror attacks on Prism and Coastland, and then proceeded to ask for access to nukes. Thus, he was soon banned from Arlington, Sanguine, Arstotzka, and all of Cornet. People slowly began to get on the server less and less, as the server itself became much more peaceful over time, and Praetoria was calm, despite the threat of nuclear annihilation being just around the corner. However, all of that changed when it happened.
Aiden and Samuel wanted to spice things up on the server, so they decided to file a lawsuit on Isaiah of charges of corruption and abuse of power for happenings that occurred earlier in the server's history,
in hopes of getting Isaiah impeached. However, Aiden and Sammy had an ulterior motive, and that was to bring TNT into the courthouse and threaten to blow up the PIC building in order to blackmail Isaiah into getting impeached.
But Aiden told Henry, who would be the judge, about his plans, but Henry didn't want anything blown up, so he decided to warn Isaiah about what Aiden was planning to do.
So, Isaiah came up with the plan himself. So finally the time came, and in the middle of the court case, Aiden whipped out the TNT and threatened to blow the entire building.
However, what happened next was so stupid that nobody saw it coming. Isaiah brought out a nuke and said, "If I go down, then the whole city is coming with me." So then a standoff ensued, until... the nuclear bomb went off, destroying the city completely. And while some survived, the city did not. After all this time, it seemed as though Arlington was finally done. Except wait, after a few months of Arlington being destroyed, Isaiah generated an idea. He finally figured out a way to restore the server to the time before it was nuked. So bam, Arlington was back, and everyone celebrated. After that, the International Order was created, which was a place where trials could be held without the threat of blowing up another city. And with the creation of the International Order, the conclusion era begins. After the completion of the International Council, the world became more peaceful, as everyone began to play on the server less and less frequently, and Praetoria slowly became silent. And now, we reach modern day, and there is still so much history that was even left out of this video. But for now, it seems as though Praetoria's history is at the moment complete.